in the media conference with Lal Goyal, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Newsgaon se Samvad Sarokar News, Organ Donation India Foundation and Gyan. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic. And today our topic is West Bengal post-election crisis. But before I will go on our topic, I would like to inform you that today our country is celebrating National Technology Day. National Technology Day is celebrated every year on 11th May. Nation celebrates the achievements and contribution of Indians in science and technology. This day serves as a reminder of India breaking into the elite group of nations with nuclear weapons. On May 11, 1998, India conducted 3 successful nuclear tests at the Indian Army's Pokhran Test Range in Rajasthan under Operation Shakti. 2 more nuclear tests were conducted on May 13th. The tests were led by late President Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. The National Technology Day was observed for the first time on May 11, 1999. The Technology Development Board ever since has been honoring scientists and engineers and their technological innovations that have added to the growth of India on this day. Media conference with Lal Goyal wishes you all on National Technology Day. Now coming on our main topic, that is West Bengal post-election crisis. General election to the Legislative Assembly of West Bengal for 292 constituencies of the 294 constituencies in West Bengal were held between 27th March to 29th April 2021 in 8 phases. Outlined in Article 168 of the Constitution of India, the West Bengal Legislative Assembly is the only house of the unicameral legislature of West Bengal and not a permanent body and subject to dissolution. The tenure of the Legislative Assembly is 5 years from the date appointed for its first sitting unless dissolved. Members of the Legislative Assemblies are directly elected by the people. Election results for 292 constituencies were announced on 2nd May 2021. Trinamool Congress won 213 seats while BJP won 77 seats. After the announcement of results, post-poll violence broke out in the state. The BJP claimed at least 6 of its workers were killed during attack by workers of the ruling Trinamool Congress on the same day. Afterwards, the number has increased. The governor summoned the director of General Police and Kolkata Police Commissioner to discuss the situation. By 4th May, allegedly around 14 opposition party workers were killed. The CPIM and Congress alleged their workers had also been attacked by the TMC. Union Ministry of Home Affairs sought a report from the government of West Bengal over incidents of post-election brutality against opposition political workers in the state. Trinamool Congress Supremo Ms. Mamta Banerjee was sworn in as West Bengal Chief Minister for the 3rd state term on 5th May after she spearheaded her party to a remarkable victory in the assembly polls. Ms. Mamta Banerjee, in her trademark white sari and shawl, took oath in Bengali. Ms. Banerjee said her first priority would be to tackle COVID and also appeal to people to maintain peace. The ceremony comes amid mounting pressure on the TMC government over the post-poll violences that claimed at least 14 lives in 2 days. Ms. Banerjee has asked the administration to control the violence at the earliest. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Honorable Mr. Narendra Modi called up Governor Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar and the Union Home Ministry seeking a report from its state counterpart. BJP President Mr. JP Nadda also met families of the victims. West Bengal Governor Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar said that the state is embroiled in the violence after the assembly elections, which concluded on May 2nd, in which Chief Minister Mamta Banerjee's Trinamool TMC emerged victorious. The governor said that the real ground situation has been masked and the elected government will have to address the grim reality. Post-poll, we are in a deep crisis in the state. The retributive violence and acts of arson, loot now have graduated to intimidation and extortion. This is worrisome, Mr. Dhankar was quoted as saying by ANI. The governor's comments come shortly after he administered the oath of office and secrecy to 43 ministers who will be part of the 3rd cabinet of the Mamta Banerjee government. Asking Mamta's government to engage in soul searching, Mr. Dhankar said, all is well, there is no violence is being projected, but The ground situation is otherwise. I expect state government to engage in soul searching, address grim's ground reality, and book the culprits who have chosen to tarnish our democratic fabric, unquote. If your vote becomes a cause, again, he said, so quote, if your vote becomes a cause of your death or property destruction, if it leads to arson, then that signals the end of democracy, unquote, he said. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee accused the central ministers of inciting the post-poll violence and that has erupted in the state after election results were declared on May 2nd. The CM claimed that the BJP-led NDA government at the center is yet to come to terms with its loss in the state assembly polls. On the other hand, BJP National President JP Nadda accused the TMC of targeting BJP workers in the state after the convoy of Union Minister Mr. V. Muralidharan was attacked in West Midnapur. Mr. Muralidharan has claimed the attack was carried out by TMC goons. Addressing the press, Ms. Mamata Banerjee also made a slew of announcements for those affected due to violence. A compensation of rupees 2 lakhs each for the families of deceased, jobs of home guard to one family members each of all 5 persons killed in CAPF firing in Sita Kulchi, CID probe in Sita Kulchi incident. The center has deputed a team of top bureaucrats to West Bengal for a fact-finding exercise on the ongoing violence in the state. The 4-member team constituted by the Ministry of Home Affairs, MHA, is headed by an additional secretary rank official. Although the left and Congress party members have also alleged retributive violence against their cadre by workers of the victorious TMC. The BJP is desperately trying to communalize this political violence by blaming it on Muslims and infiltrators. Many BJP supporters, leaders, and pro-BJP journalists have been sharing misleading posts, unverifiable pictures, and inflammatory rumors with a communal slant. This is mentioned in the media, which was stated by the supporters of TMC. There is a stark contrast between the reactions of the BJP leaders and the leaders of the other parties. Are these reports of gruesome violence in Bengal, the TMC's victory celebrations, condemnable, will be resisted and refurbed? Instead of focusing on combating the pandemic, TMC unleashed such mayhem. CPIM, as always, will be with the people to protect, assist, providing relief, wrote Sitaram Yechuri, General Secretary of the Communist Party of India, Marxist. The West Bengal Congress Party called the post-poll violence by the TMC against Congress workers unacceptable. Meanwhile, Mr. Kailash Vijayvargiya, the National General Secretary of the BJP, shared a video with the caption, "TMC Muslim goons are attacking women BJP workers." It has received several lakh views and has been shared by many BJP leaders and right-wing social media handles such as Kriteli. A poster of Ms. Mamata Banerjee with superimposed visuals of arson and unrelated old pictures of Muslim men in skull cap is also being shared. Alt News founder Prateek Sinha pointed out that the 2 pictures have nothing to do with the recent violence. Boom Live reported that BJP IT cell members, including Ms. Preeti Gandhi, the Mahila Morcha social media head, shared a fake video of TMC workers with the audio of Khela Hobe overlaid on it. The video is being shared with the caption, #Bengal violence, TMC goons, Bengal burning, shame on Mamata victory celebration of TMC goons with weapons. It seems the death in front of us. Save BJP Karyakartas, save Bengal BJP supporters, save Bengal. Misleading pictures from 2019 were shared as images of recent post-poll violence in West Bengal with communal and inflammatory captions. Just now, the report came that all 77 BJP MLAs will get central security cover as cleared by the Ministry of Home Affairs. In India, President's rule is the suspension of state government and imposition of direct union government rule in a state. Under Article 356 of the Constitution of India, in the event that a state government is unable to function according to constitutional provisions, the union government can take direct control of the state machinery. Subsequently, executive authority is exercised through the centrally appointed governor, who has the authority to appoint other administrators to assist them. The administrators are usually non-partisan retired civil servants. When a state government is functioning correctly, it is run by an elected council of ministers responsible to the state's legislative assembly, Vidhan Sabha. The council is led by the chief minister, who is the de facto chief executive of the state. The governor is only a de jure constitutional head. However, during president's rule, the council of ministers is dissolved, vacating the office of chief minister. Furthermore, the Vidhan Sabha is either prorogued or dissolved, necessitating a new election. Now, to discuss this very, very important topic, which is a very, very current and it's happening every day, violence is taking place. This West Bengal post-election crisis, we have a very elite, knowledgeable, who have full knowledge what is happening in West Bengal, the panelist with us. And I would like to invite my first guest, and he is Mr. Niloli P. Rajashekharan. Mr. Niloli P. Rajashekharan is a writer, music composer, and CEO of Guru Management Consultants, Bengaluru. His creative and social activities includes publishing 6 Malayalam novels and over 40 short stories. He published 2 English novels, King Pawn, based on Syrian civil war, and Azadi, based on the conflict in Kashmir. He has published Competency Web, The Corporate DNA, and several other papers. He composed over 200 songs for labels and independent music, currently promoting 3 YouTube channels. He is coaching and mentoring startups. He is having experience of 45 years of international director level. He worked in for profit and not for profit organizations. For 15 years, he in financial services, Bank of India, Chase Manhattan, and Standard Chartered Bank. 10 years in oil and gas, Shell, Exxon, Mobil, Qatar Petroleum, and 10 years in non-profit CGIAR, World Bank funded international system. 10 years in consultancy and teaching MBA students, entrepreneurs, and corporates. He lived and worked in over 45 countries across continents. He is a management consultant, coach, speaker, creative writer, musician, and active on social media. He is a strategist on governance, performance management, leadership development, and HR. His expertise in management of startup, downsizing, high growth turnaround, and cultural transformations. He is a member of Mensa International. Welcome, Mr. Niloli P. Rajashekharan on our show. Mr. Rajashekharan, you have heard the report which I read. Both sides. I have not given one side version. I have given the version what the ruling party in the state right now, TMC, is saying, and what the opposition party in the state, the BJP's version. And what is the stand of the Chief Minister, Ms. Mamata Banerjee, and what is the stand of the governor there? And what is the stand of the central government as of now? Now, still the violence is on. Condition, although TMC claims under control, BJP says not under control. The reports are very conflicting. So we would like to know from you your views about this topic, today's topic, that is the West Bengal post-election crisis. Mr. Niloli P. Rajashekharan, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Goel. I really appreciate these opportunities to openly talk about current issues which are very relevant for the nation today. Since you have done an outstanding job of defining what is the current situation in Bengal and also looked at some constitutional options, I will avoid that because I was planning to start with that. I'll move straight into the next part of my thoughts on this, which is to start looking at, in the current situation, what are the 3 or 4 things that the government has to grapple with. The first is the post-poll violence. As you said, that needs to be addressed. We don't know what the state of play is because including media is slanted on this. So we have to rely on second-hand evidence and hopefully things will be sorted out. See, security for people and property is a primary state responsibility. This is very important because if the state fails in that, the center also cannot walk away from it because the Constitution guarantees security for people and property as a primary state responsibility, whether the state or the center. The second, we are grappling with a pandemic, which requires everyone to work together. This is not the time to bring out differences and start fighting political or legal battles. And unfortunately, that's being forgotten in this whole post-election scenario. The third is what I call the smoke screen being created, where realities are being suppressed by different parties. There's no one party responsible. Everyone is trying to distort and exaggerate their points of view, which is unfortunate, but we'll have to get through that, muddle through that. And the last, which is one of the points that I would like to add to what you said, is the failure of the media. The fourth estate plays an extremely important role in democracy, which we find increasingly being compromised. There is partisan reporting, there are views rather than news, there are stories rather than news, and political overlay and political lenses which are being used to report information or data. So they become more of opinions rather than actual data. So the failure of the media is something that we'll need to address because most media is trying to be partisan these days for their own interests. Maybe it's financial, political, or recognition, or whatever it is. So I think that adds to the situation. Now, I would start with a little bit of history about Bengal, which is essential to understand what's happening there. Unlike Kerala, which is often compared with Bengal, Bengal has had a history of politics through muscle power and violence. The pre-partition riots, for example, the Noakhali incident, the post-independence violence are some of the blots in Bengal's past. The organized attacks against landed class, the Congress leaders and workers in late 60s and 70s prompted even the chief minister, Siddhartha Shankar Ray, to leave the capital and handing over the political space to the Marxists. The Congress central leadership accommodated him in the union cabinet, but the party did not fight back, nor did it come to the rescue of its own workers. As a result, the communists virtually had a free run in Bengal for 34 years. So beginning with 1977 assembly election, Congress party was the victim of extreme violence at the hands of the Communist Party. But then it's interesting that what followed was a repeat of that history, with parties changing positions. Mamata Banerjee-led Trinamool Congress hit the streets and did to the communists what the communists did to the Congress. So Nandigram became a battlefield politically and literally. So Nandigram was the scene of violent clashes during that period. And in 2008, the ruling CPM was trounced and the TMC started its journey. So Mamata Banerjee cut her teeth into politics in Nandigram and led street fights and rose to power in 2011. Ironically, the same Nandigram has now rejected her and elected a BJP candidate, which is another issue. So the violence in West Bengal does not seem to have any ideological basis. This is important. There's a lot of violence in Kerala as well, but that seems to have more of an ideological basis between BJP or communists or Marxists or whatever, because TMC does not profess any political dogma like the Communist Party or the BJP. It started as an alternative to Congress, which vacated the political space to the CPM in the face of extreme violence. So now if you look at it, Mamata Banerjee is trying to do the same thing. She wants to see the back of the BJP or any opposition and not concede any political space, and she's using violence as a strategy. So it's important to see this in the context of the history of Bengal. And what does it mean for India? Now I'm shifting scenes here. Given that, where is it leading us? Where is it taking India? And I see three big challenges to this, to the nation. One, a challenge to federalism. And this is not only for Bengal, there are some other states, I'll touch on it. And the second is a challenge to democracy. And the third is a challenge to national security. And I'll take a couple of minutes to talk about each one of them. And it's also driven strongly by the changing political landscape. If you look at the growth of regional parties, whether it's in Tamil Nadu or is it in Kerala or is it in West Bengal, the regional parties have dual loyalties because they grow as regional parties. Now, CPM is an exception. It still claims to be a national party, restricted to Kerala. But other regional parties like DMK or TMC have very narrow agendas, which are important for the people of the state. But sometimes that works against the national interest. and they indulge heavily in vote bank politics, which also I'll touch on. So let me move on to the 3 points I mentioned. One is a challenge to federalism. See, many regional parties are starting to behave like independent governments and forgetting the difference between the party and the government. It's an important one. See, politically, Trinamool Congress or the Marxist Party or the DMK can fight BJP at any level politically. But the government of West Bengal cannot fight the government of India on the same terms, except through established constitutional methods. No matter which party is in power at the center, that's irrelevant. Today it may be BJP, it may be Congress, it may be C, it doesn't matter. So there is a relationship between the state and the center, which is fairly defined, well defined, and that's the fabric of federalism. And that is being violated in many ways by these regionally formed governments and parties. And few states which have political difference with the center are adopting blatant violation, marginalization, distortion, or ignoring of federal laws and rules. Now, there have been some instances recently, in Kerala, for example, of blocking activities of central agencies, violating import-export regulations, foreign exchange regulations, violation with regard to import of religious books, etc. I mean, there are rules which need to be adhered to as long as those rules exist. Politically, you can fight to change those rules, and the Constitution allows for that. But having a rule and then violating it is not acceptable, and especially in a context where the authority of the states, with 3 clear lists of central list, state list, and the concurrent list, very clearly defines that. And the last part I'm coming to in terms of challenge to federalism is the role of the central government. The central government is also not acting in time or strong enough in some cases. The central government is elected to power by the whole nation for 2 things. One, protection of the constitution and its national integrity and security. When those are challenged, they have an accountability to act on it, to assert firmly, and forgetting the political backlash or the cost of such interventions. It may be expensive politically for the party, but as a government, the central government has the obligation to act on these things, especially when these tendencies lead towards sedition, when sedition is seen as a writing on the wall. So those are some of the thoughts on challenge to federalism as a concept. Now, let me shift to challenge to democracy. One of the important things in democracy is the respect for opposition. Recently, we had excellent examples from Tamil Nadu and very poor examples of how to deal with opposition, especially when a party wins with a big majority. It is normal to win or lose elections, but that does not put an end to differences in thoughts and ideology, nor to the activities of the opposition parties. Today you are in government, tomorrow you may be opposition. And that is being forgotten in the extreme joy of winning elections. And state machinery as well as media, especially social media, are being used extensively by governments to discredit and silence opposition. And this will create much stronger pushback in the long run. There's no doubt about it. And very short-sighted response, blinded by their victories, to ridicule ridicule the opposition, to lose sight of their legitimate roles and the basic frameworks of democracy, which require respect for opposition. And there will be strong political pushbacks. And the people who gave power to any government can also take it back. Unfortunately, we don't have the right to recall, but a maximum period, and there are situations when the governments have not been able to complete their whole term. So ultimately, the power remains with the people. And the third point I want to talk about is the challenge to national security. The overemphasis on regional interests at the expense of national interests needs to be carefully monitored, and that's the center's job. And managed where necessary by the center. It will not be a pleasant duty, nor is it going to be very happy or pleasant or even peaceful. West Bengal or Kerala or Tamil Nadu, which have border states, can be border states, either sea border or you have borders with other countries, have an added responsibility to manage migration and national security consistent with national policies. Now here, there are political differences to be fought politically, while existing rules, which are constitutionally established by the parliament, have to be complied with. So you can't mix them up. Politically, you can fight to change those rules, create new rules, or scrap existing rules. But as long as they exist, they have to be complied with. And that's the center's responsibility if the states do not comply with it. And finally, there is considerable misuse of authority due to ideological differences, political oppositions, and parochial political gains, including increase of cadres by legitimizing illegal immigrants in some of these states. And that works against national security. So there are 4 points against national security, which Bengal brings to the foreground now for discussion. So where do I see the way forward? I think it's time for state governments and the people in the states to recognize that such approaches can only lead to powerful central interventions or incitement to sedition, both of which are not in the interest of the nation. Mamata Banerjee and other chief ministers will have to change their attitudes towards the union government, and so does the center. They have to change the attitude towards West Bengal to maintain a spirit of cooperative federalism. The third is the need for leaders. This election has shown something. With the growth of the regional parties, what we call the parachuted leaders, leaders who are brought in from outside the state, have not done very well. So there needs to be consistent engagement with local communities. This is becoming more obvious in the local elections and state elections. So people make different choices in these elections based on different criteria. And Kerala, it's interesting. The party that wins to the parliament is very different from the party that wins to local elections. So people are discerning and they make their choices based on different sets of criteria, one of which is the actual engagement and the actual work people do in their constituencies. And the next point is for the center to act decisively and in time. This is a red herring, I know that. Extraordinary situations need extraordinary responses. And center has the responsibility to protect what we, the people of India, have entrusted them with, which is the constitution and the internal security and the external security of India. So there are many potential conflicts ahead that require statesmanship, tough decisions, and absolute commitment to the constitution and the rule of the law by the state and the center. The only thing I would say is the earlier, the better for India. I'll expand more if you have a second round. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rajshekharan, for giving your very, very balanced views. What Mr. Rajshekharan says that the federalism, one has to honor the spirit of the federalism, and the responsibility lies with the state government as well as with the central government. And he says the state government should understand that as per the constitutions, whatsoever the powers are lying with the center, the state has to honor them. And the center also understand that they should also try to cooperate. But in case if the state governments are not cooperating because they have been elected by the people from the India to safeguard the constitution, so whatsoever strong steps they have to take, that is the prerogative of the central government. So basically what Mr. Rajshekharan says, and he has given the examples of not only of West Bengal but Kerala and Tamil Nadu. He says strategically they are very important because of they are bordering the countries, and they cannot do anything which can harm the interest of the country, that is our India. And for that, even if the central government has to take some strong actions, which will be unfortunate, but they have to take, but the state government should also try to cooperate, see to it that whatsoever is happening after the poll results, it should come under control as early as possible. Thank you very much, Mr. Rajshekharan. Definitely in the next round, I will be asking some tough questions to you, but that will be the next round. I'm now going to the next panelist, and I would like to invite and introduce my next panelist, and he is Mr. PKD Nambiar. Mr. PKD Nambiar is a marketing strategist and political analyst. He is the managing director and CEO of Flex Communications. He is the chairman B Square Group. Armed with over 20 years of experience as an entrepreneur, marketing strategist, and a political analyst, Mr. PKD Nambiar is a name to reckon with in the industry. He is also renowned as a startup turnaround and growth specialist in the corporate sector. Furthermore, he is a sharp communication strategist for the SME sector. He has addressed various prominent political debates, forums, colleges, and corporates across the country. He shares his valuable opinions on political, social, and business issues and has appeared on numerous news channels, including NDTV, 24/7, CNN, News 18, News X, Times Now, CNBC, India News, India Ahead, etc. I can vouch for it because yesterday I saw him on the NDTV 24/7. He was there, although the host has not given him much chance to speak. and he was allowing the other three panelists to speak more. But don't worry, Mr. Nambiar, here you have a full chance to speak as much as you want to express your views, because our format of this media conference is different. We do not want to put our words in your mouth. We want whatsoever your opinion, please express freely. Definitely we'll like to ask some questions, but otherwise no tutu meme. We do not want a shouting match here. So please be free to express your views, whatsoever your views, good or bad. Not bad means the good, positive or other side or this side, we have no problem about that, except that we do not want to defame any political party or political person by name. Yes, if their ideology, you can very well criticize whatsoever ideology is wrong. You are free to criticize. Thank you for patience hearing. Some of his well-known program includes New Age Leadership, the brand new You Too Can Be an Entrepreneur. His expertise lies in strategic planning and brand building. He excels the whole gamut of marketing and 360-degree advertising functional parameters. With the vision to deliver excellence in every chosen undertaking, Mr. Nambiar is hands-on in all aspects of advertising, planning, management of ATL, BTL, and online advertising. Being the professional marketing strategist, he works with the marketing team members to assure the accurately execution of high-quality marketing strategies within the defined time frame. He is a powerful political strategist committed to delivering sincere political conversation in the major news channels, debates, and discussions, as well as taking a defined lead in making Indian youth aware of relevant political affairs. Being a motivational speaker, he believes that Indian youth has got the immense potential to transform the downfall scenario of our country into a noticeable one by making great endures that will play a crucial role in the growth of the nation in every aspect. When India calls itself a young nation, youth in India should not be left unexplored. His consistent efforts in bringing the fruitful voices of youth is implementing a change as well as helping to fill this void, contributing meaningfully in the future of our nation. Welcome, Mr. PKD Nambiar on our show. Mr. Nambiar, you have heard what our earlier panelist, Mr. Neoli P. Rajshekharan, has spoken, and what I have given the report. Professor Salam, yes, now you have joined. You are. I will be taking you after Mr. Nambiar now.
Okay, no problem. I was struggling to join you.
Yeah, we got it. So thank you very much that you have joined. So, Mr. Nambiar, you have, and you being so much actively participating every day on the TV channel, so your knowledge is current, immense, and definitely your views, because you are quite articulate. Everybody appreciate your speeches, the way you express yourself. So definitely we would like to know your views on the West Bengal post-election crisis. Mr. PKD Nambiar, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goyal, for having me again on your show. And it is indeed a great privilege to be amongst the very knowledgeable panel today. Well, politics in India have always been tutu meme. Whether you accept it or not, that has been the truth. There is, our democracy has always built from the very first day onwards, maybe to start with an ideological backup, slowly move to from politics, the true politics, जिसको हम राजतंत्र और राष्ट्रतंत्र वगैरह जो कहते हैं, to a power politics. So when a power politics comes into play, the whole objective of these political parties is to grab the power. Now, to grab the power, we use the word democratic way of getting it, and one of the primary way of the democratically getting into the power is to the election, luring the electorals, offering them. So as while we were matured as a democracy over the last so many years, there has also been a flip side of our democratic values are diminishing. This is the truth, irrespective of my political views, political aligning. But the truth is that every political parties have been responsible for this diminishing the very character of our democracy slowly. But we remain as the largest democracy in the world. We remain as a country which celebrate the democracy and conduct elections every 5 years and elect a new government every 5 years. So on that front, of course, we are still considered to be one of the finest functional democracy in the world. Now, coming back to the real topic of today is West Bengal. It is very saddening. It was very heartening to see what has happened. It was purely state-sponsored. It is a wrong word. Even today, when we are talking, there are violences which is taking place. So it has got multiple dimensions. I think I would not like to go, as you said, I'm also more of like a little bit of an activist role I play than an intellectual role. So I would like to go a little different from the Mr. Rajshekharan, who was trying to give a theoretical explanation to all the stuff. I will give an activist form of the reality of today in West Bengal. The West Bengal has changed, all for bad. A state in the 1960s was considered to be the top 3 states in the country. During the 34 years of rule by the communists, have moved to the 11th position. And an alternative suddenly have come up from the Congress to her own party called as Trinamool, became more of like the voice of the new voice of new Bengal, but unfortunately have chosen the same path as the 34-year-old communists have done to Bengal is violence. Imagine my challenge is not the democracy, center, state, nothing. The basic morality of getting into power. In the case of Mamata Banerjee was that she was trying to portray, and truly to some extent, I used to be a great fan of her once upon a time when I was a young boy, because I feel that she's a fighter, a lady who was fighting the big mammoth communists in Bengal, and she is coming to power as an alternative against the political violence of the CPIM-led communist government of that time. But there onwards, what happened? It is again now a history from the last 10 years, more than 400 plus people have died. MLAs have died. The panchayat presidents have died. I mean, killed. Died is not the right word. It's been killed. And some of those killings, even like I'm also being a Kerala, I can say I hail from the state, the district of Kannur, where it is supposed to be considered as a gruesome political killing. And I would say even Kannur has failed miserably in front of the Bengal violences. In Kannur or in any other CPM-led places, the violence was generally between the man, but here they did not even, it was only a political and ideological battle. Here it has even got a shade of communality to it. Please note that the most important danger part of democracy is appeasement. And this has been proved multiple times in our history. All those parties who have practiced minority appeasement and the very danger of people coming together as a community and becoming a vote bank is having a bigger strength, and they become a decisive force and they can take on to the divided majority is becoming a truth. And that is the finest example of the election result of West Bengal today. All those who analyze politics, all those who have been a part of elections, because I have been a part of elections from the last at least 15 years continuously, almost every election, somewhere or the other way I have been involved. I must tell you, the situation in Bengal is so bad. From the 1960, it was a third topmost state in the country, and if the communist has left it as an 11th position, today it is a state which is in the 16th position in the national average, wherein the people are talking about the development. The number of people, the Bengalis, the most poor people you can find, despite communist rule, despite Mamata ruled for almost put together 44 years, is a place where the maximum amount of poverty. education, less underprivileged people you can find. But one thing keep growing in that particular place, Mr. Goyal, is that minority appeasement. बांग्लादेशी घुसपैठियों को ऐसे जैसे कहते हैं ना ताली में सिंदूर लगा के ताली में वेलकम करके एक most of the there are some districts in Bengal today, almost 8 of them if I recall it correctly, it is completely dominated by minorities. So when I say this fact, people may say that, oh yes, Mr. Nambiar is a communal guy, he don't like Muslims, he has got an issue, he's a right-wing thought process guy, but the fact of the governments cannot be wrong. Today, even for an example, there is a dangerous pattern of politics is happening. A section of the society is being used for appeasement, and that section of the society become, even whether they are small or a bigger, they become a bunch of people who can define the political results. Even in Kerala, whether it is CPIM and Congress, between the Congress and the Muslim League, the difference between both these people, the parties have become so thin. I think 21 or 22 with Congress and 15 or 16 with the Muslim League. And no matter what happens, the Muslim League will continue to get between 15 to 22 seats, whether Congress comes, whether CPIM comes. So the dangerous pattern of political opportunism to get into the power, unfortunately, none of us, the people, were never expecting from Mamata Banerjee. There are two things which we feel sometimes. Either she herself planning it and executing it, or else she is completely out of control of her own party. So in either case, it's so dangerous. It is not just a political victory and coming back into power. It is great that the third term woman chief minister is coming back. Yes, the country is supposed to be proud and celebrating that particular moment. What happens in Bengal is nothing less than a state-sponsored terrorist activities, plus, which has never seen in this country only after the partition, we have seen such kind of an exodus. Imagine the chief minister of Assam is saying more than 80,000 people have come to Assam just to save themselves. If in your own country you will have to fled just to save your own life, what kind of a democracy are we practicing? What kind of a power are you going to enjoy, Mr. Goyal? You cannot. I think that is not the democracy. And then my challenge, do not even hold on to that. My own brother, whom you mentioned, that B. Muralidharan, when he was attacked, and I called him after exactly 5 minutes, he could not, if a union minister cannot travel in India freely, not even attending a program, he was just going to a place. Is there any role of law in that particular state? No. If the women are getting raped day and day, if the youth, just because of an ideological difference, is killed, I think no power can make you feel happy to be in power. I think the politics of this country needs to change, irrespective of political parties. Power politics should become a development politics, and politics should become an ideological politics, and we should learn to accept the different ideologies. And there is always a say that as you go up, and a third time for Mamata Banerjee should have given her humbleness, because rather than that, just because she lost Nandigram, she should not have gone such a rampant to kill the people. And most importantly, not even accepting that, Mr. Goyal, that there is a crisis in the state. You are disrespecting the governor of the state, and you talk about corporate federalism. There is nothing called as corporate federalism when you don't accept the reality on the ground. You will not be able to You have no right to talk about a corporate federalism when you yourself is not ready to accept the constitutional authority and do a tutu meme with the governor every day. The governor cannot, if the governor is not safe, if a governor is not able to be given the report by the DGP and the chief secretary, and they say blatantly a no to him, then what kind of a democracy and power are you talking about? I think the Bengal should be a lesson to all those people. The minority appeasement politics should be over. Every religion should be kept out of politics. Every individual, every people should be given an equal right. Whether you are as a community bonded together, you may be going to a madrasa and you have some people who can dictate terms for you, doesn't matter. When it comes to the country, when it comes to the politics of the people, the constitution should be the supreme, and the elected government have the had to protect every people. You can't be biased because you are a majority community. Precisely this has happened in Kerala. The majority community is declining every day. It is less than now a 50%, but nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody wanted to talk about the reality. If from a 85% of the population or a 90% of the population over the 120 years of time, it has become like less than 50%, and nobody wanted to talk about it. And I think the culture of Bengal is under threat. The democracy in this nation with regard to Bengal is under threat. The need for every regional politics needs to be aligned, as Mr. Rajshekharan said, to the national polity, and the nation comes first than the state. There's a famous poem in our, a great poet from Vallatol in Kerala. Even though it may not be right to narrate that poem in Malayalam, but then the truth is that as when you hear about the name India or the Hindustan, आपका अंदर से जाग उठना चाहिए, ना कि सिर्फ गाली देने से कोई अच्छी गवर्नेंस नहीं होता. अच्छी गवर्नेंस तब होता है कि आपका स्टेट से, चाहे गल्फ हो या चाहे देश के विभिन्न भागों में जाने वाला जाके नौकरी ढूंढने वाला होगा, तो यू एज अ लीडर इज अ फेलियर, you as a political party is a failure. Your ideology have no base. Only when you are a successful state, when you are able to give enough food, enough health facilities, enough job opportunities to the people, it cannot be creating a migrant laborers to the rest of the world is not a symbol of a progressive state. I would like to stop my first comment here. Over to you, Mr. Goyal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nambiar. I'm sure now today you will have no grudges against the media. I have given you the full chance to speak. And what Mr. Nambiar has mentioned, it's a very, very important point. He said, first he said that the across the party lines, all the parties failed for the democracy. The diminishing of the democratic values are the responsibility of all the political party. Then he said that when we are talking of the corporate federalism, that there is a unwritten law, and that is that you have to respect. Forget about the legal provisions, and the respect, mutual respect is required, not by abusing the governor or the central government every now and then. He has also made a very important point. He says that the appeasement of minority is the basic problem. That's why our democracy is diminishing. If we are doing the vote politics only on the basis of appeasing the minority, that is not a healthy thing. You must do politics, you must be elected on your development works, but not on the only the basis of the appeasement of politics. And he has said that there are districts which have been governed, or the majority is the minority people. And he says that is not the thing and that's why the problem started. And he says that as a Miss Mamta Banerjee, which he as a child he used to praise her, the problem is when she lost the Nandigram, she wanted to take the revenge. And according to Mr. Nambiar, the condition in West Bengal is very bad and some strong action should be taken, intervention is required. But what that he has not mentioned, definitely I'm going to ask in the next round. But he is very, very clear the situation is not good. When a central union minister is not safe to travel in their own country, then how safe is the resident or the citizen there in West Bengal? So Mr. Nambiar is very, very disappointed with, and he says that what is happening, it's really shameful for all of us. Thank you very much, Mr. Nambiar, for giving your very, very strong views. I will definitely ask some strong question to you in the next round. Now I would like to invite, I'm sure now everything is fine with our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. M. Abdul Salam. Although I have read about him, but again, I would not want mine to read about him because he was not there. Professor Dr. M. Abdul Salam is PhD postdoc from UK. Dr. Salam is the former Vice Chancellor of the prestigious University of Calicut, which is one of the largest and reputed university in India. As a renowned educationist, agricultural scientist, and education administrator, Dr. Salam, in a career spanning more than 4 decades, 1975 to 2020, across continents, has established a great reputation as a tireless academic and scientists, despite being recognized as one of the most authoritative voices in the area of higher education. He is an academician and scientist with great zeal and enthusiasm. He has published 153 research papers, 15 review articles, and 13 books in biological science. Welcome, Professor Dr. M. Abdul Salam on our show. Professor Dr. M. Abdul Salam, you heard what our earlier panelist, Mr. Niloli P. Rajshekharan, as well as Mr. P.K.D. Nambiar has spoken. Now the situation you know very well. I know that you have fought the election on the BJP ticket in Kerala. So you know the values or the principles on which BJP is contesting the election. Losing or winning is the separate thing. And you also know the conditions in West Bengal. So we would like to know from you your views on the West Bengal post-election crisis. Professor Dr. M. Abdul Salam, please.
Good morning, Goelji and the respected team members. I'm sorry I could not join in time. I was struggling for at least 25-30 minutes to join you because of some audio problem. I could not hear the first part of it, at least half an hour I missed. But still, I will just share my thoughts about this post-poll crisis of West Bengal. Now, you mentioned that I fought in the BJP ticket. That may give a message that I may be blindly going after BJP. No, I'll be just presenting, impartially what I feel about this issue without my alignment or my inclination, my association with BJP. Now, I was just looking at the state of West Bengal. We have 28 states, So this particular state is not like any other state. Why? Because of the simple reason, I rate it as a very sensitive state, a state that is to be dealt just like Jammu and Kashmir, that has got a long border of over 2,217 kilometers along Bangladesh alone. They have, in addition to Bangladesh, this West Bengal is sharing border with Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan, Assam, and all that. When you look at the population, say 9.3 to 10 crore total population, 30% is said to be reported to be Muslims. That means 10 crores and 10 crores population, 3 crores Muslim. Again, in simple terms, it is often estimated and reported that out of the 3 crores of Muslims, 2 crores are migrant Muslims. They are all very much affected, and I don't know, they are all disturbed due to the CAA. That's one part of it. Number two, I was observing the 35 years of Marxian rule in West Bengal, similar to something that we are seeing in Kerala now from term 1 to term 2. Then when West Bengal is having 30% Muslims, Kerala is also having 27% Muslims. Now this West Bengal with a long border bordering to Bangladesh, carrying 2 crores of the so-called immigrant Muslims or threatened Muslims or disturbed Muslims with a wooing politics. That is the politics of Mamata, just for so-called power, power and power mongering. Actions wooing the people, whether they are within the people, within the nation or without nation, often feeling that Bengal is a nation by itself. All the time when we listen to the words, we get a feel that she feels that Bengal is a separate nation. Just like our Kerala people sometimes say, Kerala is a separate nation. They feel, they forget about the term India is a sovereign, socialist, democratic republic. Forgetting the terminologies related to the meaning of the words, India is a sovereign, secular, socialist republic, and it's a democracy, disregarding the true content of the constitution. Some of the people, politically mad people, believe that this is their nation. So the first point I would like to record over here is such a sensitive state should be dealt separately to safeguard the constitution, to maintain the meaning of the word sovereignty, sovereign socialist republic. There should be a strong border. Unfortunately, this border is a perforated border permitting inflow of people. I remember as a person often traveling in different nations, if you don't have a visa to a country, you know the problem. You'll be out or you'll be in the jail. Now, unfortunately, our leaders at Delhi, the union government leaders, we are a union of states, they never paid attention to the words, what is his sovereignty, what is his republic, what is the need for a strong border, the need for counting the people who are all our people and other people, foreign people, keeping the home in order, they forgot. In that process, states like West Bengal, they took advantage for their political gains. I was reading certain article for the purpose of getting votes and votes alone. Mamata has declared several, incentives for keeping the vote bank with her. That has, that has tarnished the face of the democracy. That is one observation I have made about the state itself. Now, the second, coming to the economy, it's 6th in GDP in India, but 23rd in GDP. That means it's not a very rich state. Number 3, I am observing lot of possibility for agriculture, industry, and tourism. A state with a tremendous potential for development, potential or capability or scope for taking the GDP from 23rd to within 5 or within 10. Potential is very much there. But unfortunately, our political people, in the name of democracy, misusing democracy or killing democracy, they are taking their own advantage by using the innocent people and even doing harm to the nation, even feeling that Bengal is a separate nation within the nation. That is a tragedy of it. Then another thing which I have observed here is, is it not very, very similar, or I should say very close to a state-sponsored terrorism in the wake of the wooing politics? Now we are all aware that about 2 crores of Muslims or less than that are there with a troubled mind, with all the time hostile to the union government who has brought the CAA. The government, the state government, I think they are taking advantage of this particular situation at the cost of the nation. That is why I say the state of West Bengal should be considered separately. It's a sensitive state. It is a border sharing state. No, we cannot allow this much of selfish politics at the cost of our national sovereignty. National sovereignty and national integrity. So therefore, my feeling is that the state in the context of uncontrollable violence, state-sponsored violence, even a union minister failed to travel comfortably. Such an environment, I believe that it is high time for a government of India intervention, not to topple the democratically elected government, I underline that, but to regulate the situation. That is important, to maintain the integrity of the nation, to maintain law and order of the nation. Any form of intervention they can think of, even even beyond the constitutional, crossing the constitutional rights, we must go. What for? To maintain peace, harmony, and national integrity. That's what I feel at the outset. For that purpose, perhaps such states may even be considered as union territories, something of that nature, which can have a more control over the peace situation, maintaining peace and harmony in the state. So this is a typical case of the tragedy of democracy, the death of democracy, a situation where the democracy can take a nation to shambles. And this sort of uncontrolled wooing at the cost of public money for unwanted purpose will lead the state from poverty to poverty. Somebody should intervene. We cannot leave West Bengal just like we leave other states. This is a special area, concerned area. If we leave them just like this, I'm sure a stage will come at which it will be, the struggle will be taken to the objective of, liberation of that part of the region. So I conclude by saying that the situation is alarming. This is the worst form of a democracy. This cannot be left as it is. This should be, West Bengal should be treated separately. If necessary, it may be transformed to a union territory or any name you can call, wherein the central government can enforce any law to maintain the sovereignty and integrity of the nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. M. Abdul Salam, for giving your very, very strong views. And what Professor Salam says, he says that the West Bengal should be treated as we are treating the Jammu and Kashmir. And he says because it's more than 2,000 kilometers border area with Bangladesh. It's a border state like Jammu and Kashmir. So when we can treat Jammu, when we have taken, the central government has taken a very strong step in Jammu Kashmir, why such type of step cannot be taken in West Bengal? And he says this is the reason that the West Bengal, especially the Mamata Banerjee, she is taking advantage because the Muslims are disturbed because of the CAA, but to try to instigate them and try to take the liberty to destroy the fabrics of the nationalism is bad. And he says this is a killing or the murder of democracy. Although Professor M. Abdul Salam in his earlier media conference with us also mentioned once that the too much democracy is harmful. And he has given the example of Middle East. He says there the democracy is there, but it is a limited thing. Similarly, he wants that the West Bengal should be declared as a union territory, and so that the central laws can be applicable more forcibly, more effectively, and such type of violence should be stopped as early as possible. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. M. Abdul Salam. I know that there was a problem, but anyway, you have succeeded. So we can hear your very, very strong views. Now I would like to ask the question. I will go to Mr. Raj Shekharan. Mr. Raj Shekharan, you have heard the views of everyone now, the other two panelists also. Do you think the only option left with the central government is to apply president rule under 350 as section 356, article 356? Please unmute, please unmute.
Thank you, Mr. Goel. And first of all, a big thanks to both Mr. Nambiar and Dr. Abdul Salam for their open and I would say very candid perspectives, which is very important. I think Mr. Nambiar felt that I was coming probably too conceptual about this. It was deliberate because I was setting the scene as the first speaker. So I was looking at options and say, what is possible and what needs to be done. Now let me get to more specifics related to the question that you asked. Is it the only option for center to take over? I don't think so. There are many, many options which are legally possible, constitutionally possible, and politically possible. I'll make those distinctions. One, the very important point that Dr. Abdul Salam highlighted, which is the long border that we have, that West Bengal has with different entities. Now, border security is a national issue. Nothing would stop the government from reinforcing national security issues outside of the state's control. There are many countries in which the border control is completely with the central entities, especially when there are sensitive issues like you do in Kashmir. And even the army or the border security force could be independently in charge of all kinds of immigration, for example, or illegal immigration, including illegal immigration. So there is one option there to seal the borders, which can very well be done independent of the state government. It's nothing to do with that. It may not be as straightforward as I say, but that's possible. To say that in the national interest, you manage the state, but the borders are business. One possibility. The second possibility is the most contentious issue of the national register. Now, there has to be some legalization or some kind of documentation of who's really an Indian citizen, who isn't. And secondly, the actual benefits that should go to Indian citizens is being hijacked and being provided as incentives and SOPs to people who do not have those status for the sake of the vote bank. So there is a requirement, not only in West Bengal, I know it's a very, very sensitive issue, but every country in the world knows who their citizens are and who their immigrants are. And there are very strict countries. We are not the only country in the world, let's face it. But as Dr. Abdul Salam said, and also I think Nambiar said, we have lost it somewhere along the line. We have lost the central government has failed miserably in its responsibility to define what's an Indian citizen, who is an Indian citizen. The definitions are still there, it's pretty clear, but we have not implemented it. So the law books mean nothing unless they're implemented. So I think there is an implementation issue in terms of actually defining who's an Indian citizen, how do you become an Indian citizen, etc., etc. Now, there are political battles which need to be fought politically. What does that mean? If the majority of people in India vote for a particular way to go, a particular direction, that becomes a law. So the parliament is elected by majority of the people and they take a stand, that becomes a law. If they don't like it, they can go to the next election, come back to power and repeal those laws or change those laws. But you can't have a set of laws and then people saying, oh, we won't do that. That's happening in India today as we speak. But I also equally, I think the central government of late, I would say in the last 1 year, has somehow become too soft. That's my view. Especially after the CAA, what happened. And also, I think some of the partial setbacks with the agricultural reform laws, and independent of whether they were good or bad, I think there is a little bit of a back foot approach to these issues from the central government. That's my view. You cannot afford to do that. As Dr. Abdul Salam said, these are very sensitive issues which need immediate action and strong action. And there is a political cost to it. They may lose the elections. And there is also a financial as well as a social cost to it. But that's what they're paid for. That's why we have elected them. And they have to act. I feel strongly about it. Now, the methods can be many, including, in the last resort, dismissing the government, putting on a national rule on it. If that's what is required, and after trying everything, it has to be done. And why are we shying away from that? You've been elected to ensure two things: the supremacy of the Constitution, as well as the integrity of the country and its security of wealth and security of life for people. If that's being compromised by any government, the central cannot sit back and say, oh, what do we do? So I think there is a huge action required from the central government in this. Not to just dismiss the government, not to dismiss legally, constitutionally elected bodies, but to bring them in line. And that's extremely important. And I'm pretty strong about it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rajshekharan. But my question is still unanswered very clearly. Is the only option left is the president rule, or any other option is left? Because one side you said, no, we should not dismiss. The other side said, we should take the strong action. The strong action is the president rule.
No, let me explain it. I said the president should be imposed if that becomes the only option at the end.
Okay.
But that's not
okay.
the first step.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
To
Thank
discipline a government, you have to use all the constitutional measures, all the things that are required. You can deploy central forces.
Okay. Okay.
Law
Okay.
and order.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Rajshekharan. Now my question goes to Mr. P.K. Nambiar. Mr. Nambiar, in 1973, in the Keshwanand versus Union of India case, when legend Nani Palkiwala was arguing, he came out with a point called majority dictatorship. At that time, the Supreme Court, honorable, all the judges, they declined. They says, no, such situation can come. He says, if there will be because there are forms of government, but he says, presume that there is a majority dictatorship, then what is going to happen? Which they said, no. Don't you think today in West Bengal, it is a majority dictatorship? They got a majority. They have a clean majority with a 213 seats, and they want to do whatsoever they want to do. So if this is the situation, then do you think we require a proper amendment of the law? So in case of such type of dictatorship where the things are there, when the state is sponsored violence or so and so things, or they are not following the federal system, they should be taken, the central government should take strong action. What are your views about that?
Firstly, there is the example what you have taken with regard to the 1973 the Supreme Court ruling or an observation. That may not be the real thing in today's date with regard to West Bengal. I was actually having a couple of debates and discussions on other platforms related to both during the election and the post-election. Look at the political violence history of West Bengal. Before Mamta and during Mamta, right now, even now it's going on. So there is an ideological battle is acceptable in democracy. And that ideological battle...
we lost you, Mr. Nambiar.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
So I said ideological battle is recommended in, that is the expected line. That is that there was a time we used to have political parties on the basis of ideology. Now that ideological battle is acceptable without in a civilized democratic way. There is no doubt that kind of a discussion, deliberation should come. We need to understand that the West Bengal is not, as we said, that it is just not a border state or anything. More than that, the significance of in our freedom fight, even to our cultural fabric, the very contribution of Bengal in Bengalis are tremendous. Whether it is many of the freedom movement, once upon a time, it used to be even the Calcutta used to be the capital of India, even during the Britishers' time. So what is happening in West Bengal is none of these stuff what we have discussed, to tell you the truth. There is a very clear cut that if you are a BJP or a right-wing party, BJP and the right-wing parties were never a target till 5 years back. They were one of the less targeted people. The moment the BJP was a little aggressive when it comes to its electoral posture, and the Mamta started feeling that the BJP is a threat or the right-wing people are a threat for her power, she started moving against them. So the challenge is simple, that if you are a political opponent, you will be kept. Or either you join me, be a part of us, or otherwise we will disseminate you. Either we will kill you, we will uproot you, we will make you very different, and your safety will be compromised in your own house, in your own village, in your own state. So the challenge of today is that, the president's rule and etc. is not even a discussion. It is just now we got a elected government. The political issues should be handled politically. I think we are a democracy and we have a large number of vibrant political parties in this country. And today, the BJP being the major opposition party, which is at the center in power, will be playing a role of a constructive opposition, not only just in the assembly, but also on the ground. You can see that, because generally you don't see such kind of an action, that once the poll violence started, after the poll, the violence started, the BJP sent a delegation not less than its national president roaming around across the state for 3-4 days, which is itself shows that, yes, it is a political issue which needs to be politically handled. Going forward, we are a very matured democracy. Today, nobody can, and bringing a president rule, even don't even discuss such kind of a stuff. I'll tell you the reason, because that kind of a situation will bring much more trouble within the nation. Today, you're missing one particular point. Why the central government or central forces are not being so aggressive there? There is a negative force across this country. A negative force which includes the media, the so-called liberals, the Awad Wapasi gang, the people who do not like the word Hindustan as a word itself, as a term itself. What I have a feeling is that anything to do with, I asked a question in one of these debates a few days ago. Whatever had happened in West Bengal in the last 10 days, if this could have happened in Gujarat, if this could have happened in UP, if this could have happened in Madhya Pradesh, what could have been the situation in this country? So many people must have given up their Padma Shri, so many literary awards would have been given away. A lot of Bollywood gangs will come up and say that there is no democracy in this country. But today, Mr. Goyal, who talk about the real political violence? Many media in this country had not even given a 30-second slot for the political violence. You will be surprised, the people who go for जैसे कहते हैं गाय को मार दिया है यूपी के कई गांव में, even if a cow is slaughtered or some kind of an issue happens in the UP village, the entire media from the Delhi would go taking flight, taking every kind of stuff, and it will be a 1 week coverage. Have you ever noticed in the last 10 days, so many people have died, so many women were brutally raped, so many kids are being thrown out of their house? Is not even a real discussion on the national media. Why the national media is not going there on the ground and reporting it from the ground zero? Why the most liberal and most positive people like in the Kerala, the CPIM, all these kind of people are not even talking about it? So we are a Hippocratic society. A large number of our historians and so-called thought leaders have become the victim, or otherwise the prisoners of their own thought process, wherein they only know one thing, that anything to do with the word Hindu needs to be objected. I was having a chat with Mr. Ram on another day on a television, the former Hindu, the director of Hindu. We were having a proper debate between me and him. And what he said, this is the problem of this country. He was given 10 minutes to explain his thought process and saying, he is blatantly saying that I hate Hindutva. And the word he used, I hate Hindutva. And I told him that why don't you say in the same word, I also don't like the Muslim appeasement. You know what he said? He was not ready to concede. And so the problem in today's date is that there is, given if a central government act on something, then it will be blown out of proportion and there is a new narrative is created. What we need to do is that we need to understand the reality of life and without having any political or a narrow thought process, we should need to learn, appreciate the good things. We don't want bhakt. I'm not saying that all the people, there is another challenge. There is a large number of bhakt. And bhakt also not required, but not just for the heck of, you don't like somebody, you start hating him. That is also not acceptable.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Nambiar, for giving your views. Now my question, last to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. M. Abdul Salam. People are saying that Mamata Banerjee is now the real threat to the prime ministership. And she is going to, they says the opposition found one candidate who can give fight until 2024. And that is the reason, out of proportion, the BJP is creating such thing that so many people have died, so they are rushing everyone there. They said so much is happening in COVID, so many people are dying for want of oxygen and for want of so many things. The BJP is not taking any action. Why they are taking? So this is the views. It's not my view. I'm saying that what the people are talking. They says that's why the BJP wants to see to it that Mamata Banerjee to be put on her place right now, so that she will not become a threat in 2024. Your views. We have a short of time, only 1 minute I can give you.
Yes,
Professor
Lalji, I can answer you in simple words, I think that's only a dream that can never happen. Similarly, some people say that Pinarayi Vijayan will be next prime. They can dream. I tell you, India is India with 138 crores of people. We have a large number of sensible persons, along with useless people also. We have a combination of many things. But I'm sure that's only one dream. Let me add one more point. India is the only democratic environment where anti-nationals, I don't want to name, all the time talking and acting against the nation, are comfortably living in this country without any harm. This situation should go. Anti-nationals, in the name of democracy, in the name of politics, all the time talking and acting against the nation, comfortably living in the nation. Should it be allowed? That's my question. I conclude. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Salam. So today you have seen how strong views were given by all the three panelists. And they says whatsoever is happening is not a thing which should happen after such a glorious victory of Mamata Banerjee. She should have not done, but one of the panelists says she should have become more humble. Why this thing is happening? A death of a 1 person or 100 persons or 1,000 persons is as good. See, after all, death is death. Why the rapes are taking place? And the figures which are only yesterday, the chief minister who took the oath of Assam mentioned that 80,000 people have displaced. They ran to Assam to save their lives. Is that what for which our freedom fighters fought to get the independence? They never wanted the independence for the region-wise or the state-wise. They wanted for India. They never thought that we will be fighting among themselves like this. And what has been mentioned, that no president rule is required, and it is very premature even to talk about that. But yes, some strong action should be taken by the central government. Let's wait and see what is going to happen in coming days. Thank you very much for joining us. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, News Gaon se Samvad Sarokar News, as well as was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topics again and again. And tomorrow, media conference with Lal Goyal at 10:30 a.m. The topic is Central Vista. Yes, you heard correctly. Central Vista, which is now becoming a very, very controversial thing. Although today I was told that the Honorable High Court Delhi is listening about that hearing. So let's see whatsoever the outcome, but we will be discussing it tomorrow. And our panelists are Mr. Pradeep Mathur, former leader of Congress Legislature Party, UP Assembly, Lucknow, Advocate Ramesh Kumar Sharma, renowned lawyer of Western UP, Mathura, Mr. Arun Lakshman, Director, Center for Policy and Development Studies, former officer on special duty, Minister of State for Law and Justice, Trivandrum. So please tune in tomorrow for media conference with Lal Goyal at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. M. Abdul Salam. Thank you very much, Mr. Niloli P. Rajshekharan, and thank you very much, Mr. P. K. Dinambia.
Thank you very much.
All your views, and thank you all the viewers for watching. I'm sure today's media conference, although it's quite in a fiery way, but it has given and enlightened all of us, and all the viewers are also been enlightened. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.